Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am 1-2 podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. With me, as always, in the studio is the man that makes all the magic happen, the man that helps me in this endeavor to try and carry this message of strength, experience, and hope to all of our friends out there. Dan the Man, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Dan, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Glad you are here.
We are here every week, folks, to bring you the best high-octane juice we can to get you excited about your own soul's growth, your own development, your future, your path. Do you have a purpose? What is your meaning in this life? All that good stuff. We're going to help you find some of that on this show. We're going to share all these wonderful tools that we have learned over the years and learned from millions of other people practicing this same 12-step program all over the world. And these tools work. They really do. Shortest line in the big book. So come join us, and we will try to give you all the juice today. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic that every alcoholic starting out needs to be very aware of, because it is truly the heart of our insanity when it comes to our disease. Our disease is a disease of perception. It's a disease of obsession. It's a disease of the mind that tricks us into taking a known poison. Alcohol is a known carcinogen. Smoke in your lungs is not good for you in any variety, no matter what it's coming from. To take that poison into your body and keep doing it despite negative consequences, that is a real sickness. So we're going to talk about this thing called the peculiar mental twist and how our mind gets all botched up in the moment of crisis when we need to make the right decision and we make the wrong decision constantly. It's part of our cycle. So Bill was a genius writing this book, and most of us believe that he was inspired by a higher power working through him, because if you know his history, he was not only less than 2 years sober, but he was also suffering from tremendous bouts of depression, plus infighting within the program, just trying to hold it all together with all the egos and everything. And most of the people in Alcoholics Anonymous did not even want a book. They fought him to not have a book. So he was fighting to say, no, we need to have something to help people that they can learn about this process. And he gets to this point of chapter 3 where he puts the title of it as More About Alcoholism. And he could have focused on any number of things he was learning from Silky, as he called him, Dr. Silkworth. But he chose to focus on, you know what the core of the problem is according to Bill? The crux of the problem is our state of mind before we take the next drink or drug. How sick are we in the head, and what are we thinking of that we could possibly believe it's a good idea to start the nightmare trip to hell one more time over? There isn't an alcoholic or addict listening to this who doesn't know with a surety, based on my past experiences, I know exactly what putting that bottle or that joint or that pipe to my lips is going to bring me to, and yet we do it. You know, my theory as a therapist is we all have this grand fuck it button inside, and we get pressed far enough in our perceptions. I'm not being treated right. I've got some resentments. I'm angry at my boss. My wife's not treating me right. Boom, we press that fuck it button, and nobody gets hurt but us. I'm not saying nobody else gets hurt, but the worst is us get hurt from when we press the fuck it button. So we want to slow that down today and break down this process of what is going on in our head and what do we need to watch out for to make sure that we can keep you newcomers safe out there. So Bill decides in this chapter More About Alcoholism to talk about these states of mind, and he offers up all these great examples of different varieties of alcoholics doing insane behaviors. And the first time I read this, I was like, I can't relate. Some of it's just plain ridiculous. And as we go through a couple of these, you'll be like, yeah, I don't get why anybody would do that. But if you really look past the analogy, which is what all the great teachers have used for years as a vehicle to really teach a lesson. Jesus did it all the time. Then you'll see the wisdom and the method to his madness about why he's using these stories. So first we have this story about a man of 30 who believed that he wanted to be successful in business, but he was seeing that his drinking was going to get in the way of that. And because every time he drank, he went to pieces and started to have some consequences. And he says, you know what? I want to nip this in the bud. I'm going to stop drinking until I'm a success, until I retire. Then maybe I can get back to it and enjoy myself. Now, they call him an exceptional man in the book, but I call him, as a therapist with my science background, and not a true alcoholic yet. He was on his way, and he recognized the signs. And every single one of us who has this illness, there was a point. And by the way, when I use the word alcoholic, because we're talking about the AA book today, please transplant whatever addiction or obsession you are dealing with in your life with today, and you will see the madness of yourself. Okay, so I don't care if it's food addiction or gambling, or maybe you've got codependency issues and you can't let go of worrying about somebody and trying to control their life. That's all the same stuff. So, but this man of 30 thought, okay, well, when I retire and successful, I should be okay. And he did. He was a very successful man, made a ton of money, all means at his availability where he could have spent on treatment. And very quickly he went to pieces and ended up in the insane asylum, which was the word for treatment back then, the asylum. And he was like, what the hell's happening to me? And he couldn't stop it. And within 4 years, he was dead. Now, they did not know this back in the 30s, but science has confirmed, and now we see this through the wisdom of the program, watching everybody else's experience, that this disease progresses even though you're not using. You don't believe me? Talk to anybody. Dan, I'll ask you to verify this. Talk to anybody who goes back out after a period of sobriety and says, A, I picked right back up where I left off. I thought I would get a little bit of a vacation, but it very quickly ramped up to where I left off. And B, it got worse than ever, followed by worse than ever. That's a promise in the big book. Have you not seen that consistently play out for people, Dan?
Yes, I have, and I've experienced it myself.
It's scary, right?
It is scary.
And it's what frightens me, being a guy with 41 years recovery. I hate to think how my disease has progressed, bro, because if I win, I just think I'd be a firecracker and just flare out and be dead overnight, you know? So I don't play with that. I respect that. So that's the man of 30, and then he gets to his retirement, and he brings out the carpet slippers, and he's dead within 4 years.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, please. That's what I want.
In there, it says, and I was at Scott's page 112 meeting, which if you read the first three, read what the first three words on page 112, read this book. And so they named a meeting after that, and we were in more about alcoholism last week, and I read that, and it's the man of 30 was, I pulled it up on my computer, and you said an exceptional man. He remained bone dry for 25 years and retired at the age of 55 after a successful and happy career. Then he fell victim to the belief which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink as other men. And here last year at 55 years old, the same as the man at 30, not exactly the same thing. But, you know, that's that open heart and open mind to be able to see that. It really hit my heart, though. Like, oh, look at this story in here. And the same thing happened to me. At 55 years old, I thought my period of sobriety somehow or another.
I'll have at least a cushion before I go nuts.
Yep. And boom, you know, and it was awful. You know, in no time at all was it awful. Luckily, I survived it, and I did not, you know, I am not going to be dead in 4 years as long as I continue to do what I'm doing. But it was an interesting thing of what God tapped me on the shoulder, showed me that 55-year-old thing.
And that's our process. And you who are listening might be in the middle of that right now. But what Dan did right and what you need to do is he ran right back and said, I want help. He ran right back into our arms. And we went, because that's where the strength is in numbers. It's in the group. Don't battle this alone. If you've fallen, get back in the group. Get back in the group. That's the only way you're going to survive this. All right, so moving on. I'm going to skip over Jim's story because he's the one I really want to focus on. So we're going to jump next to the jaywalker, and I really relate to the jaywalker. And for those of you who have not heard it, it's only a couple of paragraphs. And as you listen to this, you're going, well, what is Bill trying to say here? But just listen to what he wrote. He says, our behavior is absurd and incomprehensible. That's a favorite word of Dan and I's when we say that people are incomprehensible. Our behavior is absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that of an individual with a passion for, say, jaywalking. This man gets a thrill out of stepping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for quite a few years in spite of friendly warnings. These are people saying, dude, what are you doing? Be careful. This is stupid. Up till this point, you would label him as a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him entirely, and he is slightly injured several times in succession. Boom, boom, boom. Now, you would expect him, if he were normal. That's my favorite line of the jaywalker. You would expect him if he were normal. Again, that's not us, folks. We're not normal. Normal people don't think the way we do. Only 10% of the population thinks the way we do. You would expect him, if he was normal, to cut it out. Cut it out, dude. Stop. Presently, he's hit once again, and this time he has a fractured skull. Dude, that's bad. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley now breaks his arm. Now he tells you he's decided to stop jaywalking for good. We had a fellow in our meeting do that last week, and I'm not so sure he's done yet. But in a few weeks, he breaks both his legs. On through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. I'm just going to avoid it. I'm just going to avoid the bars. I'm going to avoid going down the dope man's house. That'll save me. But he doesn't understand the peculiar mental twist. So finally, he can no longer work because he's so damaged. His wife gets a divorce from him, and he's held up to ridicule. He tries every known means to get this stupid jaywalking idea out of his head. He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. But the day when it comes out, when he races in front of a fire engine, and he breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? Now, one of my favorite things in this part of the book is when Bill goes on to say whatever the word means, this pure insanity. And he says when it comes to alcohol and drugs, we've been strangely insane. So he gives us a special category of insanity. This isn't the insanity where I think I'm Napoleon and I'm standing there at attention. This is the insanity that, like, I know what's going to happen. This guy knows if he plays with cars, he's going to get hurt. But he cannot resist. And that, to me, is why I relate to the jaywalker so much, because it's that little bit of devilishness that I'm beating the system, and I'm going to fool everybody. I'm smarter than everybody else. I can get out of this. I spent my whole life doing that shit since I was a little kid, being the teacher's pet, and then she walks out of the room, and I'm doing the worst shit, and then the other guy gets caught, not me, and he's in trouble, and he's looking at me like, he did it, and I'm like, not me, I'm the teacher's pet. I've been doing that motive my whole damn life, and I love getting away with it. And those guys, if you have a case of that, be careful. You're on a one-way trip to prison. Those are the guys who go to prison that like to rig the system and beat it. And I think I could rob a bank. I actually think I'm smart enough to get away with it. And they'll start talking like that. What's your take on the jaywalker, if anything I missed there, Dan?
Yeah, I relate to him more today than I did before. I always had a little bit of a problem. You know, Bill goes on, you stopped and says, you may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is
Most
it?
people do.
We have been through the ringer. Have to admit, if we substituted our thing for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. And yeah, that's me too. That little bit of that con man, that little snake in the grass thing where, you know, I think I'm above the rules, which is another thing that's bigger than the rules, where I think I'm going to be able to pull it off somehow. And there was a piece of that here and that this time around too, where I thought, just like when they talk about putting your hand on a hot stove, it's not going to burn me this time, and here's how. I will somehow manage it. And right out there in the road again. The jaywalker is Bill just does a great job of putting some phraseology together in here that just has lived on for, 90 years now that, how could you duplicate this today? You know, so cool to come up with this jaywalker illustration to describe us who do these things which we know are injurious, but we continue to do it anyway.
And he goes on to explain after this story of total craziness. And he's first starting with Jim's story's craziness, which we're going to bounce back to. And he goes on to say, yeah, I can hear y'all out there, and you're saying, hey, man, you know what, these guys are nuts. And I can hear what you're saying, but I'm not that bad. And I don't really do that kind of shit. So now that you've told me what I need to know, I think I can figure this shit out, and I'm going to avoid it, and I'll be okay the rest of my life. And then Bill
Thanks for the information.
Thanks for the information. So that's right. It's right here. So then Bill goes right on to say, yeah, but this is the point. The alcoholic without exception, the true alcoholic or addict, will be totally unable to quit on the basis of self-knowledge. And this comes directly out of Bill's experience, because in the first chapter, he says, I had the self-knowledge. I had what it takes. I could laugh at the gin mills because Dr. Silkworth told me what was wrong with me, and they don't know they're sick. I know I'm sick. I know I can stay away from it. And boom, he was drunk.
Yep.
And it's self-knowledge doesn't work. There's a lot of intellectualists out there thinking I can figure this crap out, and they're going to go all the way to the Bowery or Skid Row. That's where our friend Clancy, great speaker from California, was talking about where he went, and he was a top dog, written up in Time magazine, top of his industry, all these great accolades, money, and he ends up living in a car on Skid Row. Because of what? Ego. Because I can figure this out. Nobody can tell me nothing. All right, so let's jump to Fred. And I think Fred's story is probably the scariest, even though the Jaywalker is so dramatic. Because Fred's talking about, I'm just like an average successful dude, man. I'm an extremely successful businessman. I'm having some problems with my drinking. I come into AA. You guys tell me what's up. And, I've been the head of industry, and I've accomplished a lot of great things in my life. So now that told me what I need to know, I really think I'm going to be okay. I think Fred was balking at the full picture of what was going to be required. He saw those whole 12 steps, and he saw the sacrifice of his time away from his business. And I think there's probably the spiritual stuff like, I'm not really, I don't know about this God stuff. You guys might be a little Jesus crazy over there, even though that's not what it is about, but that's what everybody thinks. So he decides, I'm gonna wing it. I'll be all right. And he gets this opportunity to go to Washington to sign this huge contract. And the business went extremely well. Everything was perfect. It couldn't have gone better. And he's living high on the hog, and he's in his hotel room, and he's getting dressed for dinner, ready to go to a 5-star Washington restaurant and have the finest meal and celebrate his business success that day. And here's what it says. As I crossed the threshold of the dining room, the thought came to mind that it would be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. That was all. Nothing more. See the way he just downplays it? And that's the peculiar mental twist incarnate in my experience. It's always a very subtle, hey, hey, Dan. Hey, psst, Dan. There's a liquor store over there. Nobody's watching. Hey, Chris. They're going to make marijuana legal in the state of Kentucky. In fact, it already is. You've got one of the conditions that's on the medical card. You could actually sign up for that. And for me, at the end of my drinking, the one that always played on me, and this lasted for over a year or two, just one last hurrah. I always wanted one last blowout, man, because I didn't feel like I had enough, and I didn't get enough of that excitement, and I wanted to have a story to tell. And I got to tell you, of all the stories I've heard over the years, most people die on a whimper. They come in on a whimper more than on a blowout. And so we try. But that was the lie I bought in autism. Just one more time. Just you can do it one more time. Nobody will know. You can reset your sobriety date. So, any thoughts on that? This
chapter, I've been in it a couple times, and it's interesting that I've landed on it. Scott's group was reading it. Me and John Michael are going through the steps, and we landed in this chapter right off the bat. And I'll be honest, there's a piece of me that wanted to put some separation between me and these stories that are in more about alcoholism, and I read them again today, or not today, but the proverbial today. And man, it hit me like a ton of bricks this time around, because that's exactly the way things went. It was no doubt that peculiar mental twist. I can't even put my arms around it, but something tapped me on the shoulder and conned me into thinking it was okay that day. And it's frightening. It's nothing short of fucking scary that something can jump in you and get a hold of you after, where I was standing at that day. And say, okay, it's going to, you can pull it off.
It won't matter.
Thought came to mind that it'd be nice to have a couple drinks, man. I'm a little stressed out.
Nothing more. It's not a big deal.
A big deal.
And I love that, what you just showed right there, in case anybody wants to rewind the tape. Terror. I want my new guy to show me that. I want him to see that, what if I can't beat this? Even if he doesn't buy it fully, I want him to see that little hint of what if I'm going to be that guy pushing a shopping cart one day. What makes me think I'm better than those people?
Yep.
And I always encourage my guys, go to some downtown meetings. You should go talk to some of those folks, because they all had nice homes. Most of them.
Yeah.
Most of them had great careers, families. Kids don't talk to them now. Terror is good. And I too had that same experience. Like, how could something have such control of me that I'm literally doing something I completely disagree with, and I cannot change the wheel's direction of my car? I would say, turn around, go back, stop, don't do this. And the car had a mind of its own. But if you say that to a normal person, if you're listening out there and you don't have this disease, you don't know what the hell we're talking about. But if you have a gambling addiction, or you're on your way to Krispy Kreme or to get a pizza and you got a food addiction, you know that once the obsession takes over, you've got to complete the neural circuit, because it's literally on fire in your brain saying, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. And you're just like, ugh. So, yeah, frightening is the correct response. So let's talk about what happened to our friend Fred here for a second, because I love his story after his first, just a cocktail, just a few, couple, nothing more. So after dinner, I decided to take a walk. Well, he's feeling a little bit good now. He's feeling a bit loose.
Go for a stroll.
I like how Clancy breaks down the stages of drinking. He talks about my altered perception. And he really says that's the core of our illness, that we can't deal with reality. I don't want to deal with my finances being fucked up. I don't want to deal with the wife bitching or husband. I don't want to deal with my boss getting my back and too much pressure. He's not paying me enough. So let me alter my total reality. He says, this is the way it works. I'm going to muff it up, but this is the way he does it. He goes, I get the bar. I have the drink. And I said, okay. All right, Clancy. All right. That's a little bit better. That's good. And then I take the second drink. That's when I become more interested in you and friendly. Hey, how are you? Oh, yeah? Good to see you. Start hitting on the feet or ladies and stuff. Take that third drink. I've forgotten completely about the finances. I've completely forgotten about my responsibilities, and I'm free of this world. And it's a beautiful place to be in. And that's where I wanted to be 24/7 when I was using. That's what the goal was. And if you all use harder drugs out there to get to that spot, you're in immense danger, because the quicker and harder your brain gets hit by that, the faster it does, the more likelihood of strong, unbreakable addiction. Right now, today in my groups, side note, what I'm seeing is meth is just, it's replaced heroin by far as the drug that people just can't fucking put down. We're having more success with heroin addicts with Suboxone and other tools, but this meth shit it's leaving such a euphoric recall. And in my day, it was crack and cocaine, and luckily, just cocaine in my day. I had freebase, but if I had had crack, I wouldn't be here with you all today. I'd be dead. But that euphoric recall that leaves extra receptors in your brain after your first hit of coke, and I'm assuming meth does the same thing. It's a fire on their brain they can't let go of, and they just keep falling right back in that trap. Altered perception. I cannot deal with reality. So he's having his walk. He says, when I returned to the hotel, it struck me that a highball would be just fine before going to bed. Well, Dan, I've already broken my sobriety date. I mean, what's one more highball, right? So I stepped to the bar and I had one. Well, wait a minute. I remember having several more that night and plenty more the next morning.
Yeah, one period. I remember having several more that night and plenty the next morning.
Yeah, that's all he remembers is the one. And then he has shady memories of the rest. And the guy's hair of the dog. He's hungover. He's got to get on a plane and go home. I have a shadowy recollection of being on the plane for New York. And then we got to the airport, finding a friendly taxi cab driver instead of my wife. Now, here's his wife sitting there at the luggage reception. Maybe even he fucked over and said, fuck my luggage, I don't give a fuck. And she's standing with the kids, and he just leaves her stuck there. Because why? He's got that altered perception. He's in La La Land. I'm not married, Dan. I found a buddy. And this taxi cab driver, I know the type, took him for a ride for 3 days. Kept the meter running. This taxi cab driver's drinking with him, partying with him, getting them hookers. They're doing the whole 9 yards. Don't kid yourself, because taxi drivers know how to find some action. Where's the drugs? Where's that place to go? Where's the hookers? And he's hooking them up, but he's also getting paid. I love that. I know very little what I did for several days. The Dodge driver escorted me about. Then came the hospital with unbearable mental and physical suffering. Now, here's the key. As soon as I regained my ability to think, I carefully went over that evening. Not only had I been off guard, I made no fight whatsoever against the first drink. Mm-hmm. This time, I'd not thought of the consequences at all. I commenced to drink as carelessly as if it was ginger ale. I just did it, and I didn't even think it was going to be serious. And then a week before, I was like, oh, no, I got this. I know it's bad. I'm not going to touch it. And then I just did it automatically. He says, and then I remembered what my alcoholic friends had told me and how they prophesized there would come a time in my mind and the place where I would drink again no matter what. They had said that though I did raise a defense, one day that defense would give way for some trivial reason for having a drink. I have seen this play out time and time again. Why did you do it? You know, I had this argument with my wife, man. She pissed me off. I left the house and I was like, fuck it. That's why you drink.
I don't even have that good of an excuse.
Well, I was worried about my dad.
Yeah. But, you know, I would almost like to have some fight or some fucking catalyst that said, okay, here's why I did it. There might have been a whole bunch of little bitty. That's
So
the only
tell
thing I
me
can
about
really do
that
is put
moment.
together
Tell me about that
little bit.
moment, because I think that would be instructive for our listeners.
I wish I knew the moment.
Well, was it on you from the morning that you thought you were going to do it? Were you toying with it all day? That's what I used to do with my obsession. I'd let it build on me.
I don't believe so. It was like an evening thing. It was in the afternoon. It was like after work one day of getting a lot of stuff done one day and being just kind of wore out and wanting, you know, some release. There was really no kind of real big deal. It was this deal, this
I'm tired.
trivial reason.
I'm tired. A little bit of an edge. Were you mad? about
Yeah,
your
you know,
dad?
things have been stressy. You know, things have been goofy. This dad and other kinds of things have been goofy. That just was, you know, tough to manage.
And I don't
Things
need
laying on my head.
Yeah, I don't need this shit.
Yeah. You know, and I hesitate to say this too because I don't want that energy in this, but you know, I remember that I had some goofy shit going on with sponsees and their crap, you know, was coming from different directions of like,
That can affect us.
you know, and it was not a thing. It was a number, it was the death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of thing of where it was just a bunch of little shit. And I've heard that said too, that like it's rarely the big thing that gets you. It's rarely ever the big thing. You
Nah.
survive your mom passing. You survive the divorce.
Yeah.
You survive this.
Yeah.
It's all this little minute stuff that you can kind of just shove away and call no big deal that piles up on you. And I think that's what happened to me.
Because we're good in a crisis. We like a crisis.
I'm
we
good,
are
man.
planners.
Thrive
we are
on
fixers.
chaos, baby.
Oh, man, I'll get in the situation room. I'll handle my business. But when the dust settles and the tedium, drip, drip, Chinese water torture of life, I totally agree with that. Now, it's interesting because as I know you in recovery and the walk you've had for over 10 years was one of letting shit float off you like off a duck's back. Like, you know, I don't see Dan get that wrapped up. He'll have his moments like anybody and be human, but rarely does he get that bunched up. But I kind of saw a sign, even as you described it, like, oh, this must have been the way the old Dan was without any tools, that you just got so bunched up, you're just like, I got to have some kind of relief. I can't sit here with this. I got to change this.
Yep.
Change my perception, change my feelings.
Yep.
Yeah, we all have that. I got it too, bro.
And, you know, I vaguely, you know, we could read the other story in here that I vaguely sensed that I was not being too smart. Vaguely.
Even when it had to be such a strange experience to walk in the actual liquor store and either
Oh, dude, it was like
A, be like, what?
watching, looking around, make sure
Well, that too.
you know, sneaking in there.
But then also have your disease go, welcome back.
Yeah.
That's what happens in The Shining, you know, when he finds the bar and that fake ghost bartender goes, welcome back, Mr. So-and-so. Glad to see you.
And it's so bright in there today too. You know, I don't know
Oh,
what
God.
I
Like a
used to have some
Kmart.
memory of like the liquor stores being like this kind of dark and dank kind of thing. I don't know if that was a goofy memory, but I now, you know, in that window of walking in these places thinking, could it be any? Are you gonna put the spotlight on me any goddamn harder? You know, it just felt like, and it was just shining, and you almost felt like when you walked up and paid for it that they knew.
Yeah.
You know, that like
This
you
guy's
almost
not
wanted
supposed
to,
to
you
be
almost wanted
drinking.
to tell the guy, I really shouldn't be doing this. But no, you ever gave me your money and I always paid cash. I didn't want no hints of it on my debit cards or any kind of crap where there was any paper trail. I always was paying cash.
So once the ball's in motion like that, the powerlessness of not being able to stop it, because there may have been some off ramps before you picked it up off the shelf or before you walked in or before you paid for it. And then what? We get to the car and we pop the top and hit it right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, before you even start the car, man.
Yeah. That's how badly I needed relief that day.
Yeah, it was like rip the bottle off. You know, jerk that paper bag, throw it in the back, rip that bottle off there, pull that damn little flow thing they put on the caps nowadays so they pour nice. Throw that thing off of there. I kept on finding those things sitting around in my car after the fact and get rid of them. Hiding the evidence.
Sacrilege. I mean, I've been out of the game a long time, but we just got the open bottle. We didn't have no fucking, it's like they're trying to control you and say,
they
oh,
put a little
pour
plastic
this much.
cap on there.
I
Makes
get
it pour
I get it.
smooth.
That's what they have at the
You
bars.
got to get that out of here.
So this is so helpful, Dan, for the new guys, because this is us, folks. Whatever obsession you're doing with out there, again, I invite you, if you're a food addict or you're whatever you are, when the obsession hits you, it's a compulsion that I must fulfill. And if I don't fulfill it, it feels like I'm going to die. And that's the way it hijacks our brain. And we in particular are very weak to this world being as fucked up as it is. Let's just call it for what it is. You know, it's like most of us, to be honest with you, there is a biological basis for this, began using when we were in our teen years. And we know now that the brain does most of its important growth between the ages of 10 and 18. So if you were drinking or drugging during that period, you did not have growth experiences you needed for your development. So you don't know how to delay gratification. You don't know how to be patient. You don't know how to deal with this much stress. So when we snap, and that's our fatal weakness, we got to have tools in place that I run, don't walk to call somebody. And had you even considered at any moment, geez, maybe I should really call Chris?
You know, I have some vague memory of thinking that, but it wasn't going to happen.
Because I had to.
Because I was going.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, it was over. And
Now,
it kind
look.
of happened quickly, too, so fast that, you know, it wasn't like I sit around for a couple of days and mauled this around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like lightning fast, you know, it was boom, boom, bam. And then
Like
there
Jim,
I
we're
was.
ready to talk about suddenly.
Suddenly.
Yeah.
Suddenly.
So I know for a lot of our guys in our group, this scared them to hear about. And that's good. Like I said, terror is good. It'll make you tighten up where you're being a little
One of the
loose
four horsemen.
with your tools. But nothing to be afraid of in terms of dynamics. This is how the disease works. This is why there's people dying on the street right now from this. You know, please do not be surprised. This is how our brain, designed by evolution, gets tricked by the mechanics of chemicals alone, because it's damaging your thinking abilities, but also from the dynamics of addiction and dopamine and endorphins. So, you know, I get it, man, when you need relief and you just need something. Get me off this planet. You know, please. I can't take anymore. My heart goes out to you, bro.
Yeah. You know, today, I look at it, you know, it needed to happen. Some great things have sprung out of that going on. Now, don't get me wrong, folks out there. I'm not saying that path, but I've learned a lot and I've grown a lot in the past 40-something days of doing that, of springing off of that. But yeah, it was awful and scary. And do not, you know, I'll be one to sit around here and hear a guy talking like I'm talking right now and go, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll triple your ass.
Well, they just ain't been through it yet.
Yep.
You got to go through it yourself sometimes.
I
don't wish
do
it
not
on a
discount
person.
this thing. Do not cunning,
We try to
baffling,
give it to them
powerful.
early, but those that don't take advantage of what's being shared with you, as Mr. T would say, I pity the fool.
Yep.
Because seriously, you got some bad hurt coming to you. Because listen what this guy says here. So he raised a defense. Like literally, I've heard so many people in my group tell me, you don't understand, I've got a new baby on the way. That's my defense. I'm going to be sober for this baby. You don't understand. I'm going to lose my job if I drink again. That's my defense. I'll be okay.
She said she's going to leave me.
No, they said that although I raised a defense, it would one day give way before some trivial reason. That was their prophecy. They told him that ahead of time. Well, just that did happen and more. And from what I learned about alcoholism, it did not occur to me at all at the time of temptation. I knew from that moment I had an alcoholic mind. I saw that my willpower and self-knowledge would not help me in those strange mental blank spots. That's my favorite phrase for the peculiar mental twist, because it is such a weird, I can't think straight, my lack of proportion. I know reality, but my mind's telling me do it. Strange mental blank spot.
That's exactly what I'm saying about this.
And he says here, I'd never been able to understand people who said they had a problem that had them hopelessly defeated. I was always a successful dude, but to me it was a very crushing blow. So now he's had his ass handed to him. Now he's a little bit more receptive to maybe listen for real to what they're telling him. And this is my favorite part. 2 of the members of Alcoholics Anonymous came to see me in the hospital. They grinned, which I didn't care for very much. Now, I think you got off light. They could have outright laughed at his ass. But then they just looked at him and said, had enough? And they asked me, was I really licked this time? you know? And I had to concede both propositions. And they heaped all this evidence on me. They explained more to me. And then they outlined the answer of the program, the spiritual program of action, and all that jazz. He says, although it sounded sensible, it was pretty drastic. But he says, you know what? Once I made up my mind to go over with it, I had this weird feeling that my condition was relieved, as it proved to be. So the most important this thing ends on is to remember that the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. You who are listening might have 20 reasons not to do it. And that's your effective, that's your fence line, as my soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan that I worked with for a year would talk about every day. But your defense is going to fall. Your defense must come from a higher power, which when you're starting is your sponsor. It's your group. It's the people around you. You don't have the power right now. You need to be with people who have beat it. Any other words on Fred, our successful businessman, dude?
No, but I can relate to it like I've never read before.
I know. The older I get in recovery, the more I marvel at the genius of this book. And then when I first read it, I thought it was the stupidest tripe I ever came across in my life. And I like what Clancy says about it. He says, it's not that it's badly written, it's that it's boring. And that was his take, because he goes, I like action novels. I like where stuff happens, and they're just like made of moral inventory. Whatever. All right, so let's get into the heart of the matter, because I love the way this was explained to me by my sponsor and by his teachers and other teachers I've heard. We have great teachers out there, guys. Joe and Charlie tapes, if y'all haven't heard them, get on YouTube. Look at Joe and Charlie, read the big book, and they go through it. And they have brought such a gift to us on their perspectives. But the way I was taught, there's also different perspectives on Jim's stories that they don't touch on, which is what I'm going to bring up to us today. So our first example is a friend, except for us, our fourth example, called Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. So he's got the mantle of his father's ghost and possibly his grandfather's ghost watching over him saying, don't fuck this up. We worked hard to get this. Don't you fuck this up. He had a commendable World War record. So he served in the First World War. This is around the time of the Depression. During the Depression in the 30s. This is when all this early 30s. He was a good salesman. Everybody likes him. I'm a little dubious of the people that say everybody likes you. Like, you don't have a single enemy in the entire world. What kind of shit are you hiding behind and putting on that false front? Like, I'm Mr. Nice Guy. I like everybody. And then those are the guys that take out a knife and kill you when you're not looking. So I don't know. Everybody likes Jim. We wonder about that. He's an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. Now, I had explained to me as Jim's the guy that you sneak up behind. You don't realize you're sneaking up behind. You just walk up behind and say, hey, Jim. And he goes, what the fuck? What? Gee, what the hell? And why is he like that? Shell shock. That's what they used to call it. This was the first war involving heavy machinery where there was carnage on a level never seen before in the history of mankind.
Trench warfare.
Cannot even comprehend what these did to these people's brains. The Civil War was awful, and Roman Spartans was awful, but this machinery mowing people down, and automatic machine fire and tanks and all that stuff. And so he had PTSD, which back in the day was shell shock, and they didn't realize it was a real change to their brain. So he's on edge, okay? And he did no drinking until he was 35. Well, there may be various reasons. A, he didn't have a reason to until he came back from war. Or B, he might have been a guy that grew up with an alcoholic family and made up his mind, I'm not going to be like my dad. Now, look, guys, this is so common. I run in my group all the time. Well, nobody's really an alcoholic in my family because my parents don't drink. Oh, yeah? Have you heard about your grandparents? Because maybe they grew up with somebody that was full-blown that they've never told you about because they're trying to forget about it, and they just haven't taken a drink. And if they've not taken a drink, they might have the genes, and they might have the irritable, restless discontent, but they're untreated. So what are they treating it with? And once I start fishing around with that on them, they might say, well, my dad's really overweight, or my dad's a workaholic, or he's had a problem keeping it in his pants, and he's unfaithful to my mom, and they're divorced. I'm like, So he tried to beat it, but he got his relief somewhere else. Again, the need for relief. We're just a little different in our brain.
We also shut that stuff down. There's that shame and that stuff where people did not want, and they still don't want to talk about Uncle Jim and other people, not this Jim.
Never,
they didn't want
especially
to talk,
if it's grandma.
They don't want to address the stuff. So you may
kidding me?
not
We're
learn
not going
about
to say
it.
grandma was a drug addict. Who would ever say that?
Nobody.
No.
Right.
You'd feel like you were committing a sin.
Yep.
All right, so he did no drinking until he was 35, and in a few years, so very quickly. So his disease was ready to pop. His gene had been waiting a long time. He became so violent when he was intoxicated. He became committed. Now, this is my clue as to why Jim is such a nice guy and everybody likes him. Wait a minute. You went instantly to violence, and you're supposed to be Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Nice Guy.
Fuck you, dude. I watched those guys. Those guys in the program. Hey, man, everything's great today. I had a great day. Did you have a good day? It's just a good day above ground. Any day above ground is a good. My best day in recovery is better than my worst day you. Now I'm telling you. And they're just sitting there going, dude, just wait. He's going to blow. You don't want to be nowhere near that guy. But he became violent, so they had to put him in the asylum. After leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us. So I assume he might have gone to Towns Hospital because Alcoholics Anonymous was very small at that time. So we told him what we knew about alcoholism and the answer we had found. He made a beginning. Now, in the old days, what that meant is you were going up to the upstairs and you were doing the first 3 steps before you could join the meeting. They were vetting people. They didn't want anybody coming in there and messing it up because they had found the answer, and you would be damned if some stranger's going to come in and screw this up. So you had to admit you were powerless and get real about it. You had to admit it fucked up your life and talk about the shit you've been doing, and you had to fucking accept that we could help you, and then you had to take the prayer. You're doing a prayer. I don't care if you don't believe. You're doing a prayer, and you're going to fucking turn everything over to your higher power, and then maybe I'll let you come downstairs and I'll introduce you at some point in the meeting. And they would stand up and say, hey, this is Dan. I brought him to the meeting. I vouch for him. That's what they say. I vouch for him because he's done the first 3 steps and he's serious about his recovery. And then you could join. These guys that come to my group and I have to beat them over the head and drag them to a meeting. They don't realize how lucky they are, and they could barely go in the old days, right? So he made a beginning, meaning he did his first 3 steps. His family got reassembled. So he got results right away, just from going on the right path. Again, in a podcast we did last week about pilgrimage and retreat, making demonstrations is better than words. When you do that action, higher power will pay you off, I promise. He began to work as the salesman for the business he used to own, which he lost through drinking. So he's sitting there going, oh shit, I fucked up. Grandpa told me not to fuck up. My dad told me not to fuck up. I guess I'm the one that fucked it up. And now he's got that on his shadow everywhere he goes, that I'm the guy that lost the family business.
And I got to work.
And I got to work there. Holy crap. But I'm fine. No, I'm fine with it. Nothing bothers Jim. He's okay. He's a nice guy. Everybody likes Jim. All went well for a time, but Jim failed to enlarge his spiritual life. So he was resistant on the higher power stuff. He took the prayer because he was told to, which is okay. But you got to be open-minded. Bill says, when he says enlarge, he says, whatever you got coming in, can we just agree, newcomer, that it's not working for you? Now, you can sit here all day long and tell me you know the Bible, and you go to church every Sunday, and you know more about this than I do, and I'm an idiot because I don't know nothing. And you know what? But look at your results. Your life's in flames. So what you currently have, you need to expand and enlarge. Are you open to doing that? And he was like, no. So he was either like hardcore atheist, or he could have been a firm believer that said, no, my way is the only way, and my firm religion is all we're going to do here. And it's like, well, you can't do that, Jim. It's not working for you. Keep praying, but it ain't working. So to his consternation, he found himself drunk 6 times in rapid succession. And on each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. I love when Joe and Charlie pointed out these were good AAers, man. 6 times in a row he fucks up, and they're still like, all right, Jim, come on in here. We love you. Tell us what happened. He agreed he was a real alcoholic and had a serious condition. He knew he faced another trip to the asylum. Moreover, he would lose his family. So his wife's telling him, hey, buddy, I'm taking the kids and leaving. You get drunk again, it's over. So all this is hanging on Jim, and yet he got drunk again. So we asked him to tell us exactly how this happened, much like I just asked Dan to tell his story. This was his story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. Where the hell was Jim on Monday? Dan, were we not notorious for missing Mondays and Fridays? Yep. I'm either starting the weekend early, or I'm hungover and need a day to pull my shit together to come in on Tuesday, right?
Yep, we were, and I see it happen to today. When people miss Mondays on a regular basis, I'm going,
And he says, I remember I felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned. Irritated. Really, Jim?
Huh?
Really,
I've heard
Jim?
that word before.
So wait a minute. You lost the family legacy It's the depression. You had a silver spoon in your mouth making all this fucking money for your family. Now you're barely feeding them table scraps. You might even be eating government cheese instead of steak. You're telling me that's just irritated? And on top of all that, this is the most important point in my opinion, has anybody in the world out there ever stepped foot on the grounds of an automobile dealership? Is there any person on earth, besides maybe the politics, where people are so freaking egotistical and, full of themselves, and it's a competition, like who's going to get the most sales, who's going to get the bonus, who's going to get the, rub it in your face, I got her, you didn't kind of stuff. I know car salesmen. They're brutal. So here's Jim. He's been the boss. Jim was a guy running around, you do this, and you clean that car and get it ready, and you do this. I don't care if you don't want to do it. You're going to sell that car. And now he's one of them. And if you don't think they ain't been riding his ass day after day, month after, and Jim's going, I want to leave. I'm going to torch this place. Every day he's just sitting there with that resentment. I'm going to torch this place, and I'm going to fucking burn it down, and I'm going to do it. Take out Lucy and kill them all. And he has to go, yes, sir. Yes, I'll do it. Okay, I'll clean the car. I'll fucking do it. And they're laughing at his ass. Like, yeah, you used to be something. You're just one of us now, buddy. You're just one of us. Every day. But, he's just a little irritated. That's all it is. So, the way we lie to ourselves, even Dan saying, well, I was just a little out of sorts. I just did. Dude, we got to call our sponsor. And then when we start selling them that shit, what do I inevitably do with you and with other people? I say, fuck you. You're fucking upset. You're fucking mad. Just say it. Scream. Do what you got to do. But don't fucking sugarcoat it. You're going to die sugarcoating your shit. And we do that for no reason when we know somebody's there to listen to us and support us. And I'm like, no, but Chris, it doesn't really bother me, dude. It's not that big a deal. I'm just a little irritated. Well, he's on his way to a drink already. He's hungover from Monday. So his detoxing is like, don't talk too loud, Dan. I'm fucking soft today. Just be careful with me. So that's the one thing he's going to drink. And now he's a little irritated. He's got resentment blown up inside. He can barely keep a smile on his face. I had irritated. I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owed. So I get to the property and I had a few words with the boss. So the way I was explaining this went down, they have these loudspeakers on automobile lots and they go, Jim, come to the office, please. I'd like to see you. And every salesperson goes, oh, shit. And they're running behind because they want to hear Jim get reamed because Jim's the guy that's been giving it to them, and they want to see him get it. And so they're all hiding outside the office, ear hustling around the corner, going, oh, shit, listen to him. And the boss ain't being nice. This has probably happened so many times. The boss is telling them, I don't give a fuck whose son you are. I did you a favor to your father to bring you on, and I thought you were a loser alcoholic to begin with. But I'm going to give you one last goddamn chance to pull your shit together. And he's screaming at the guy. And the salesmen are like, and they're all laughing at his ass. And then he comes out the door and they're all like, oh shit. And they're all running away trying to make sure they don't get caught. And Jim's going to come out and say what? What does he say? What did he say? I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. No, Dan, fuck. Now, how many times did we get reamed by our wife, our boss, the neighbor for breaking in the house? You got maced. And then we come out of it, we pull our pants up, we straighten our collar, we go out. This is after we get out of the bathroom, every hair is in place. We go, man, I can handle that shit.
All right.
I can totally handle that shit. It doesn't bother me. It's nothing.
I'm all right.
It's nothing. And then he's like walking out like he literally got reamed, walking a little tall in his shorts there. But he's not going to admit it bothers him. So he's lying the shit out of himself on his way to a relapse. There ain't no suddenly to this story, and this is where I deviate from Joe and Charlie. God bless him. I just don't see the suddenly. I think he's a relapse in motion. So his response to, instead of pulling his shit together, like the boss told him to, instead of getting busy selling a car and showing the boss maybe I don't want to lose my job, I decide to drive into the country and see one of my prospects for a car.
I got to get out of here.
That's it. Escape. Number one tactic of all of us. I'm getting the fuck out. Now, I don't know if you've ever done this, Dan. You're not that kind of guy usually, but maybe one time in your life you've done this. Men, especially this guy, is known to make a statement with his rear tires when he's angry. Or revving his engine. Or driving a little crazy down the street, just flooring it, whatever the hell I did. But I'm
slamming the door on the way out.
Gonna make a statement, man. I'm gonna make a statement that you are not gonna talk to me like that. I used to own this place. How dare you? So he didn't just drive in any car. If he's a real alcoholic, he jumped in the lot one that's on the front. You know, the one they park out there, the fine top ride, to get you to come in and say, ooh, what's that? And you can't afford it. You couldn't afford it if you sold your house. It's that expensive. But he jumped right in that fucker and read that fucker up and took off under the assumption, hey, you can't yell at me. I'm going to find a guy for a car.
You told me to get busy.
He's going to drink.
I'm getting busy.
He's going to drink. There is no suddenly
He
in
never
this story.
left. Yeah.
He's going to drink. How could you not? On top of everything else he's carrying on his load. When you talked about the relief you needed going to that liquor store, it's nothing compared to what Jim was carrying that day. He's got the world on his shoulders. His wife's going to leave him. He's feeding his kids government cheese. He's a loser. He's fucked up everything. He has to drink. There ain't no question of if. So on the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. How convenient, Jim. You didn't go to McDonald's. It didn't exist back then. You didn't go to Arby's. Didn't exist back then. You went to a roadside bar. Now, here's the real hit.
Yep.
I had no intention of drinking. I just thought I'd get a sandwich. I also had the notion I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I had been going to it for years. What do we say? What's the phrase? Old people?
Yep.
What's the second part?
Old places.
Old places. Number one relapse trigger in your first 90 days. Old people, old places. So he's going to get drunk. Stop lying to yourself, Jim. But he's telling himself, I'm just getting a sandwich. I'd eaten there many times during the months when I was sober. What do they call that? That's called going in the barbershop. There are a lot of guys in early recovery. They hang out at the dope man's house. They still go to the bar. I'm just playing pool. You know, I'm in a pool league. You need to understand, sponsor. I need to do this.
I had a guy tell me that yesterday morning.
No shit. Really?
A guy talking about going to O'Shea's because he likes the fish and chips.
You can get it to go, dumbass. You know what I mean? We say if you go to the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut.
Now, what was this dude doing for those months he was going in there sober, too? Because he'd been going in there drinking,
and he ain't never found a customer in there.
Yeah. And he'd been going in there drinking, and they're used to that, right? Because the people that work at these places, most of the time work at these places for a while, you know, and they know you're a regular. They know what you drink before. You know, they got it lined. You want the regular, Jim? And all of a sudden, for this period of time, he's going, nope, I've quit. I've quit. I've quit. I've quit. And, you know, Rosie, who works there, has been serving him them highballs or those gin and tonics or whatever for all those years. He's now told her he's quit. And he walks in there today and says,
something different eventually.
Give me a whiskey.
Yeah.
And some milk.
And I love this because this makes the big book come alive. These are real people. And they went through real shit. And I don't know what it is about the human mind that we think today we're doing the weirdest shit that's ever been done in mankind. Yeah. Only because of technology, we figured out new ways to be weird. But otherwise, the people back then were nasty, dude. They said some fucked up shit in the past. And we all think, nah, man, that's old times. They didn't do bad stuff. Yeah, they did horrible stuff is what they did. All right, so here we go. I sat down at the table, ordered a sandwich, glass of milk. Experiment so far going good. Still no thought of drinking. So I ordered another sandwich. Decided to have another glass of milk. I love when Charlie says, if you're hungry enough, you order a second sandwich. There's nothing wrong with that unless you're an Overeaters Anonymous. Might need to look at that. And then they have the nerve squiggly writing known as italics to say suddenly the thought crossed my mind. But see, this is Jim lying to himself. And he's telling the story of what happened to him, and he's trying to sell it like suddenly out of nowhere. And my argument to everybody who ever relapses is no. The relapse is in motion before the actual relapse, and you needed to take action before it got to critical stage. But it's hard because sometimes we can't see ourselves, which is why we need regular contact with our supports, right? Because if I'm talking to you on a daily basis, I can tell when you're like, what? Wait a minute, what did you just say? Like, you know, that, you sound like you're upset about that, or, you're blowing it off, but that sounds like something to look at, you know? But if I'm not talking to you, it's easy to stay on the radar and just keep building it and building it. So he puts a full ounce of whiskey in the milk. Oh, my God, how awful did that taste?
I can think of Rosie going.
She's watching him, right? like Andy Griffith, just sitting there with that look like, what are you doing, dude?
Okay.
Just order a whiskey. Why do you got to put in milk? I figured it wouldn't hurt me on a full stomach. So there's his alcoholic thinking, the peculiar mental twist, that somehow if I have a full stomach, it'll be different this time. And when I tell this story to my patients, and I say, look, I know everybody in this group is saying That's stupid. That's idiotic. And the thing they get hung up on is whiskey and milk and how awful that would be to puke up. That's their main thing. It's like, oh my God, who would ever do that?
You'd think it'd turn into cottage
and I
cheese.
said, dude, literally, I could run a videotape of your life, and I can point out 30 instances where you told yourself a lie, believing that that was going to work as a different tactic. I'm just going to drink beer tonight, or I'm going to switch to marijuana, or I'm not going to use meth. Maybe if I smoke it instead of shoot it, or whatever the fucking bullshit is. Or if I go to this person's house instead of that person's house, I won't use as much. Or if I take my wife with me, she'll keep me in check. Whatever bullshit you're selling yourself, the reason you're selling yourself that bullshit is because we're prey to our mind. Our own thinking works against us, and I need that sponsor to call my bullshit out and say, bullshit, like a game show every time I present something like that to him. I mean, one of our friends is struggling right now, and we offered it up, served it up like teeing up a fucking golf ball, like, go talk to this person. They'll save your life. You say you're ready. You're broke. You're done. Let's get it done. And they go in there and go, would you be my temporary sponsor? Bullshit! Why do we need that? I don't know. I know I just blew the levels. I don't know what we did. I don't know what we did in another life. I've been that way since I was born. I needed somebody behind me to call me out. Because left to my own devices, I'm going to fuck myself. I'm going to end up in prison. Because it's okay for me to cheat on my taxes. It's okay for me to break a few laws. Everybody in politics does it. Fuck them. I can do that too. But next thing I know, I'm crying about my consequences. But where did it all start? This thick-ass, fucked up, screwed up, weird percepted mind that believed the lie as the truth. And that's been my problem my whole life. And thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous to wake me up about that. Like, I try to sell myself that shit about getting a marijuana license or whatever today, and I just laugh. I was like, yeah, right. Like, that's going to work. It just isn't even a concept. There's no way I could even... So that's the hope for all of you. All that is, the longer you're in sobriety, it doesn't attack you like it used to. It's more of a laugh when it comes up. But unless you learn about this and really listen to our elders, you're going to be just like Jim. Next thing you know, he's back in the asylum. One more trip to the asylum. And here's what it says to end on. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of his family and position. So he's going to be homeless, out on the streets. Say nothing of all the suffering he goes through every time he drinks. He had much knowledge about himself, yet all reasons for drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea. And that's where he gets into the strangely insane. So to break it down scientifically, the way they explain in the book, I have my sound reasoning as I go out the door in the morning. My sound reason is, thank you for breakfast, wife. Thank you so much. I love you too. Oh, kiss the kids. Yep, I'm going to work. I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to stay sober. I'm going to do the right thing. And paralleling with my sound reasoning is the insane thinking. And it's so parallel to me, I can't see it. If you're driving in traffic and you're not checking your mirrors, you may not see the dude right next to you when you go to change lanes. But that parallel thinking is right fucking there. It's shadowing your every fucking move, and you can't see it. You need someone else to call it out. And over the day, as the day gets to you, and you're trying to follow the sound thinking and follow the plan, and I'm trying to be sober today, the insane thinking takes over eventually in the race. And it says it wins out. And that lack of proportion, the inability to think straight at the moment of crisis, because the insane idea is won out, the sound idea is buried and muffled underneath it. Dan saying, I knew I shouldn't have done it. I wasn't being none too smart, and I have good sobriety. I don't want to fuck it up. Was beaten down by this parallel, I got you. I've already got you. And every time I got somebody in my group that's underestimating this disease, which is all of them, everybody in treatment does, they have no fucking idea what they're up against. I'm sitting there going, good luck, motherfucker. I begin to use the analogy of the movie Platoon. When Charlie Sheen comes off the plane, they're all like, we're going to kick ass. And fucking Tom Berenger, the tough old veteran that's been there with the scarred up face, is just sitting there looking at these guys. He's got that look like he's deranged. And he's just going, hey, you're all going home in body bags, fuck y'all. And he won't even waste time on them because he knows they're going to be dead within a day. That's our disease. And you guys will underestimate it and not give it its due. How much carnage has to happen throughout the history of mankind until we finally go, this has killed more people than wars. If you really added up the carnage from all addictions in the history of mankind, I think it would kill more people than all wars
absolutely.
altogether.
No problem. I have some more numbers in my head, of thinking about stuff. They're really, honestly, there's not really a whole lot of people who've been killed in wars, really. I mean, especially the ones we've documented. We don't really know the Romans and all that because there was nobody keeping track. But at some point in time,
populations were smaller, so it wouldn't be as big as today.
Wouldn't be as big.
But I hear what you're saying. But
how many people are killed by alcohol-related stuff? The CDC says it's 500,000 a year. You don't lose 500,000 people in hardly any wars.
No, that's the monumental thing, because as monumental as World War II was, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody I thought said the statistic the other day that only 70,000 people were killed. Yeah.
This is Dan breaking in here for just a second. Christopher and I kind of got into the weeds during our talk about death statistics. If you care, you can look onto the YouTube video where I've pasted in some stuff I looked up during the editing on some real numbers off the internet, the best that I can tell. It's hard to say with the, people dying from liver disease, traffic accidents, heart disease, all the various other things about how much of that is actually alcohol, tobacco, whatnot. But the bottom line is there's a hell of a lot of people dying from substance use disorder, alcohol, and drugs.
It's less than you think.
Yeah.
The Civil War, I think, was bloodier than the World War.
Yeah, I've heard
more
that.
people got killed, there was 70,000 or something like that, 50,000 in Gettysburg alone.
Jesus.
And this thing kills. Look it up on the internet. If any of you guys that don't believe, look on the CDC and see how many people alcohol-related stuff kills a year. It's 500,000 people a year,
including the innocents.
Talking about
hit by a drunk driver,
and some of it's it includes a lot of stuff. It's alcohol-related illnesses,
but that's
like
not
psoriasis
even the full
and
figure.
drunk driving, and that's just. Yeah,
that's just what we can document.
That's what we can document.
But the way it was explained to me is, if you're a fan of shows like CSI, where they go through autopsies and stuff, it may have changed, but back in the day, 20 years ago, whenever I learned this, they said the coroner actually only has about 5 categories they can use to peg what killed you: asphyxiation, blunt trauma, and Burns would teach me. He would say most of us are going to die from blunt force trauma. But it'll be your wife sneaking up behind you because you cheated on her too many times. She hits you with the frying pan on the temple by accident, and you die. But that won't be alcoholism on your death certificate. But alcoholism is what took you out to go be with that other woman because you were drunk at the time. So this disease gets undocumented more than it gets documented, in my personal opinion.
Yep, because you die from all kinds of health stuff, and they do it because of a bad liver, or your heart went bad, or various other kind of stuff. And there's that shame behind it, that they don't want that to be out and why you died.
And it's so sad, because how many of our friends, and we've seen this recently, who passed away and the disease gets off scot-free, they don't even mention they were a member of recovery or anything in it because they're ashamed. And that's not their shame. The guy himself would be like, what the hell? I want people to know what I accomplished.
If it gets me, I wanted in the obituary that's what got me.
Mm-hmm. Or if it doesn't get me,
I
want that to be one of the top accomplishments of my life.
Yep.
A good surviving member of recovery and 12-step recovery, not specifically what program.
Died sober. The real 13th step.
Mm-hmm. You want to explain that to people?
What, the 13th? I try to spin stuff, and maybe this is potentially a fault of mine in a sense, because it might get me in trouble once in a while, but I prefer to look at things in a positive way, and everybody throws out this 13th step as being predatorizing the new girls in the meeting and that kind of stuff when you're sober and you're going after the new girl, 13th step and stuff. And I would prefer, I've heard somebody else say it, and I like it much better, that step 13 is actually passing away with your sobriety intact.
I like that. And then they say you get to go to the big meeting in the sky and meet Bill Wilson. Wouldn't that be something?
Yep.
They'd like that. We've been waiting for you. We got a seat right here. Come on, join the meeting. I hope you all found this entertaining today. Again, anybody that needs to get a sponsor out there, try to get somebody with some fun, that can lighten it up, but also make these people real, because that book is dry. It's hard to read. And I needed a sponsor that could really engage me, because I'm from a theater background. So I like the voices, and I like the, especially when he would make these people real.
Yeah.
Like, real stories about Bill just raises him in his heroic achievements, in my eyes, more than him being lionized as some great blah, blah, blah. No, he's just a drunk. He's just a dumbass, egotistical drunk, wondering whether he's going to make money on this and be a millionaire or whether he's going to save the world. And that was the battle there. But I hope this was helpful to anybody out there. And again, to end on the main message, I guess Dan and I would say, and I'll give him the last word, is don't do this alone. You are up a disease that's in the corner doing push-ups. It's never done with you. I've got 41 years of recovery. And, my own family, just doesn't get it. They'll be like, oh, you're way past that now. That was a long time ago. You don't have to worry about that shit. I say, yeah, I do. The only reason I'm sober 41 years is because I have never allowed myself to think I'm better than to go to a meeting. I don't want to graduate this program. I'm a realist. I'm very practical about the way I approach my program. Don't give me a tool that doesn't work. I don't have the time for it. I want to see how the screwdriver makes my life better. Okay, good. Oh, I can see that. Oh, that works. Okay, good. I'll use that. So when these people are talking about meetings, I stop going. I watch what happens. And it's the same thing every time. My life blew up. It was awful. Worse than ever. Always worse than ever. Never better. And as I jokingly say, I want just one guy to come back and say, oh, man, it's great. It's so fucking awesome. You got to come with me.
Come with me.
I got some money. Dan, I got some money. Let's
Today,
go.
yeah.
I heard it from you when you went back out. What did I do? This is the worst decision I ever made.
Yep.
It was awful. It did not give me what I was looking for. That's the lie. My disease would always tell me, I got you. I've heard Richard Pryor talk about his pipe. Rich, come in here. I got you. Don't listen to them. I got your back. I love it. Just smoke me up. I'll help you out. It lies to me and tells me it's going to give me what I want, and then I do it, and the anticipation in getting there was the best part of the high. But when I actually did the substance, it was a letdown. I was like, fuck, it's not working. It's not working like it used to. And that's what all chemicals do. They stop working with time. Beware. So I'll give you the last word on Jim's story and any of this stuff, Dan, because, again, read your big book, but have a guy translate it for you, right?
Yep. And also, don't underestimate this thing. Do not underestimate what this can. The cunning, baffling, and powerful, and all these phrases that Bill put together in here. The peculiar mental twist. All this stuff. I even run into the other day somebody on a podcast used the word simple but not easy, and he said, I don't know where that phrase come from. And I actually did some rabbit hole in it, and I cannot find it anywhere older than Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a book out from 2012 called Simple But Not Easy. There's some other stuff, but these things that, And I'll put a little twist on the fact that, it actually did trick me into working for a little bit. And that was maybe even worse. That in the beginning, it was, you said as soon as you use a substance or whatever, for a minute, and I don't even know what that minute was. A week, a half hour, I ain't sure. It was a little bit of time. There was a couple weeks or so to where that was like, oh, yeah. Well, that's what I was looking for right there.
But even with that hangover of knowing you're fucking up and that guilt and knowing you
There
have
was
to
still
hide,
that, but somehow or another, this disease allowed me to disassociate with the two
scary.
things, man. It
Scary.
is scary. It was totally scary. And looking back on it, that I was able to show up at a meeting and totally block that out of my mind that that's what I was doing, and stop at the liquor store on the way freaking home and walk that walk. There's times of me I'm thinking, how insane am I that I'm able to do this? That I'm walking this split personality, this Jekyll Hyde thing. And, and I talked the other day, I've noticed that right now, and I notice you, I can see a shine, I can see the reflection of the world and the lights in your eyes right now. And I was looking at myself in my telephone, in my bathroom mirror, in my rearview mirror, and I could not see that reflection shining out of my eyes. They look like freaking shark's eyes. They were dead. And thinking, is anybody seeing this? And now I look back in the mirrors, and the reflection of the world is back in my eyes. I see it when I polo, and that's another thing. You're doing a Marco Polo, and you're seeing yourself, and you're seeing this deadness in yourself, and knowing that's there, and it's back. I see the light again.
well, here's
I was under the trance. I was hijacked.
two things I'll add on to that. And one is, you're very blessed that you did not go to your favorite chemical. And I believe that's how you got seduced, that it's working. I think if you had gone to opiates, the dramatic need for them, because you get so sick afterwards and you got to have it, and I think you would have been overwhelmed. I think you may have very well ended up in treatment before you knew what happened, because that's the key. There is a certain harm reduction thing to trying to use less addictive chemicals. So I shudder to think what would have happened there. But I haven't told you this, but there were several nights I would look at the polo twice or three times, and you were very emotional, and you were very. It was so odd, because I was seeing sides of you I kind of never saw before. But then I was also taking it in the context, and everything's in context, that's how the brain works, of you maybe losing your father. So when you're getting emotional, I'm sitting there going, oh, he's processing the grief, and he's seeing his when you described having to listen to your father gasping for air all night long on the baby monitor, not knowing if the next breath is going to stop because he would stop breathing and then suddenly breathe again, that's just agonizing for any loved one to go through. So my heart was going out to you going, well, okay, so God's opening up his heart center, and he's doing some major surgery because this guy's showing more emotion than I've seen him share in a long time. And so, but I would occasionally go like, what is that? Does that look like chemical use? Does that look like, is he drunk? And I'd be like, nah, man. But that's the scary part, because then now your loved ones, and I feel like I got suckered into that, desperately don't want to ever think that of you.
Yeah.
I just had no conception in my head ever that would be possible. Now it's possible for all of us, right? Now that's illogical. I'm a freaking counselor. I see it every day. But for me to somehow believe, oh, but Dan, I mean, he's
not him.
He's solid, dude. He's good. And isn't it funny? A lot of people in our group had that reaction too.
Yep.
Like, how could that be?
Yep. I certainly don't blame anybody, because I totally understand that. I totally do. I mean, it's
a testimony
like
to
I
the
said,
work
when
you
I
achieved.
when I say that why is nobody seeing that? That's not me throwing shade out there. That's not what I meant.
Well, we're masters of disguise, bro.
Yeah,
I'll let you see what I want you to see. But again, that's not a deficiency. That you achieve so much and are held in such high esteem. That's a testimony to you and your commitment. That's all good. I think the scary part was they were like, it can happen to anybody. Mm-hmm. And that's the shit we should always remember.
Yep,
that's it. Should. That's what this whole podcast was about.
Yep.
So if you're out there and you get a little dry, you better talk to somebody. Just lay it out there, man. I'm really angry about this, or this really fucking bothers me. Nobody's going to judge you.
Nope.
It's only up in your head. You're like, well, it's stupid. They're going to laugh at me. No, dude. Just lay it out.
I'm not supposed to be letting anything bother me today.
And I pray for everybody to get that connection, because Dan and I have that. We can literally share anything with each other. And I've had that with every single one of my sponsors. That's a quality I need. I must have that. I will take that over a big book guy any day. Can I talk to you? Can I just be honest with you? Because that saves my life.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
All right. Well, we've had a ball doing this. I hope you guys enjoyed it out there. Again, come join us. Please spread this around. You could really do some good service work by posting it on your Facebook feed, or just sending it to a friend that you think in recovery might be getting a little dry, might need to hear something about this, because you might save a life, to be honest with you. So, but keep coming back. We'll keep doing it, and we want only the best for you.
Yeah. And there's probably going to be a couple bad clips in this, because I was so into this podcast and the topic tonight that I'll let the thing flip over. I don't know if you noticed, but I have not hardly beeped us twice on switching the thing.
Oh, really?
So there's going to be a couple little bit of hard clips in this one, but you'll get the point. You don't lose enough content.
It'll go right from me screaming and ranting and acting out, and then they'll be like real quiet.
No, the clips are not. The chops are not that long. They're just little. You might lose a word.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. So we like to close with the Serenity Prayer every week. And again, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. For any problems in your life, send them to iam12, the word recovery at gmail.com. Again, iam12, word recovery at gmail.com. No dot. iam12, recovery at gmail.com. And don't make our questions just to send. But if you got stuff in your life we can help you with, we're here to help. All right, we'd like to close with this Serenity Prayer. So, Dan, if you would like to join in it, and the prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just forward today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. You die if you don't. Woo-hoo! We love you. Take care of yourself. Come back and see us next week. Peace out.